May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. You are so smart because you're tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. And I am Scott, your host, and a man who thinks that Han Solo is he's just a scoundrel, really. But there is something lovable about the guy, you know. And that's just like the folks over at Intertalk Radio, including my partner in podcasting down there, working the ones and twos in the big booth.
And always shooting first.
There he is, Paul B. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. I haven't seen Solo yet. Have you?
No. I want to see it. It looks good. You know, I'm in, man.
Sure.
Anything in the Star Wars universe. I even saw Rogue One. I liked Rogue One.
Yeah. I've been liking the last couple of them.
You know, why not? It's good. So, what are you doing this weekend? You got the long week. Are you guys working on Monday or not?
We're working on Sunday. We're shooting a live concert.
Oh, he's working on Sunday. Are you working on Monday?
I'm not sure yet. I'll try not to.
He's trying not.
Maybe I'll go see Solo.
There you go. Perfect time to go see Solo, I would say. Well, great. You know, about me here. So I'm Scott Robertson. I run a company called Robertson Communications. We do strategic public relations, marketing, and branding for all kinds of different companies and inside and outside the music products industry. If you want to reach me, here's how. My email is scott@robertsoncom, 2M's like communications.com, or on my website, www.robertsoncom, 2M's.com, or on my various social feeds at robertsoncom everywhere, you know, facebook.com/robertsoncom. If you type that in, you're going to find us. So anyway, today is episode 87 of The Big Show. We're inching towards 100, where I'm confident that Intertalk Radio is going to send me a new set of steak knives. I'm really excited about that. And this is episode 87, which I call GDPR, The Consumer Strikes Back. You know, today is a big day in marketing, in the marketing world. It really is. Because today, the EU and UK-based GDPR rules have now taken effect. And they govern how companies can collect and use consumer data. So if you have a website on the big, bad World Wide Web that could be accessed at some point by citizens of the EU or the UK, this is you. This means you. So we're going to talk about it on the show, and we're going to talk about why it took government intervention to make some of these changes, when the evil empire of marketing could have really just handled it by being a lot less creepy and invasive. So, you know, way to go marketing. Yay. We're also going to talk about who's winning and losing. And man, is there a list? There's a list just, there's so many people winning and losing in marketing. It's like people ask me, they say, well, you know, well, how do you find people for the show? It's like, how do I fit it all into that segment? You know, there's so much stupid out there. How do you fit a week's worth of stupid into one show, into one segment of one show? It's not impossible. So believe me, I have no problem filling that time. It's usually other stuff that we could talk about that we don't. This episode is GDPR approved, and which I will define as not nearly as creepy, my own acronym, NNAC, not nearly as creepy. So let's talk about GDPR, kids. What is it? It goes into effect today. The European Parliament and European Council developed it to replace what was known as the 1995 Data Protection Directive. According to sources, basically what it's designed to, and I'm quoting now, harmonize data privacy laws across Europe to protect and empower all EU citizens' data privacy and to reshape the way organizations across the region approach data privacy. So it is a unprecedented level of regulatory overview. It requires companies to ensure an extremely high level of data protection and, I guess, courtesy, or suffer some very large financial penalties. So let's start with the stick first. Let's start. So the penalties are big. The fines for this thing are up to 20 million euros. That's right, $24.5 million, folks, or they can fine you up to 4% of your global annual turnover, which is EU speak for how much money you be making. So who does it affect? As I mentioned before, you could definitely make a case to say, well, this is just an EU-UK thing. However, if you have a website that collects data, and believe me, that's probably everybody, and can be accessed or has the possibility of being accessed by citizens of this region, this means you. Now, there's a lot of articles that have been written about this. I think I'm going to start off my analysis of it by basically saying this: it is data privacy. It is a data privacy regulations that's designed to help the citizens. So why did the government get involved in this? And this will come back to a lot of things that we've talked about in this show quite a bit. It's because marketers, were so excited about what they could do with data. I've gone to conferences and marketers are like, look how much data we have, and look what we know, and look how many lists we have, and look how many names we have. They have so much of that crap that they forgot to ask the Jurassic Park question, which goes, yes, we can make dinosaurs. Should we? Can and should are two different things. So, yeah, you can collect a lot of data about your customers. You can, put it into ridiculously creepy reports, and you can use that to market to people. But, the Velociraptor is going to grow up, and it's going to bite your friggin' head right off, just so you know. That's what they do. That's what situations like this do. If it sounds a little bit stupid in the beginning, then the stupid's going to roll down the hill like a big stupid snowball and take out the whole village before we're done, And the reason the government had to get involved in GDPR is because marketing and companies behaved irresponsibly with customers' data. And they put it in the customer's face at so many times, so many regular intervals that we've talked about for the last 2 years on this show, that it's just crazy that it hasn't, that it didn't happen sooner. Like, for example, allow me to give you an example. So I was just reading. You guys, like me, probably have gotten a lot of privacy policy notices this week about GDPR, and you're like, "Oh, what is this?" And that's probably what sort of drove your curiosity about it. For example, one that I got today says, we wanted to update you on a few changes we've made in order to comply with the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. We've updated our privacy outlines. Now we're going to, quote, here's the bullets, give you more clear and detailed information about your rights and responsibilities with respect to your privacy and personal information. We're going to make it easy for you to control the information you provide to us. And 3, we're going to provide more detail about the measures we have in place to keep your personal information secure. Now, I don't know if you think like me or not, but my first thought when I get this is, why did it take a government regulation from a place that was not even in the United States for all these United States companies to do this? Why didn't I receive this, in January from companies just saying, hey, we took a look at our policies and realized we were being unnecessarily creepy, and we decided, we're going to dial back the creepiness a hair, and, we're going to give you this detailed information. The first lesson, the first rule that you want to learn from GDPR is the fact that marketing could have stopped this. At any point, marketing could have shut this down, and this would not have been a huge, cottage industry for lawyers and for communications people and for anything else. And nobody had to be fined, and nobody had to be any of these things. It was the continuous, rampant, widespread, irresponsible, practices, best practices among digital marketers in particular that caused these regulations to come into place. The second point that I'm going to make about that, and we're going to talk about it a little more in the show, is the fact that I believe that GDPR is just the beginning. It is the beginning of a new wave where I choose to look at it as, there are several people in the profession who tend to look at it as a threat, saying, oh, the sky is falling, our little data party is coming to an end. I tend to look at it like this. All of the stuff that you used to do, but you probably shouldn't have, now you have a legal reason to stop doing it. The moral reason and the common sense reason to stop doing it is because you're trying to build relationships with people. Marketing is about building relationships, first and foremost. It is about building long-term, mutually beneficial relationships with the audience. And somewhere along the line in marketing, that got replaced with short-term funnels and conversions. Well, I want to speak now to the funnel and conversion people out there. Your time is up. Your time is up. You have screwed things up enough. You know, it's like getting the keys back from a wrecked car from your teenage kid. You're like, look what you did with the car. You know, learn from it, and we're going to take the car away for a while. We're going to take the car away of marketing from all you kids out there that don't know what the hell that you're doing, right? And have caused this problem. And by the way, this problem is not the only problem. GDPR is the beginning. The FTC will undoubtedly come out with its own guidance on this subject of privacy. United States has the CAN spam law. You know, we have a lot of things that ensure opt-ins and things that, you know, email marketers are familiar with and all those kind of things. But the truth of the matter is that GDPR will set off a chain reaction of additional privacy laws, probably for each region of the world. So, you know, Russia will have its, China will have theirs. You know, Korea will have theirs. Latin America will have theirs. United States will have ours. Canada will have theirs. All of these regions and these regulatory bodies are looking at this right now as an opportunity to, protect the customer, protect the consumer's data, and really to, get some modicum measure of control back of this on this train. So, I do want to go down a couple of things that it affects, just so you know. Oh, and by the way, this morning, dozens of American news sites were blocked in Europe as the GDPR went into effect. So the digital privacy law went into effect today, and some websites in the United States decided to block their services entirely rather than adhere to the new regulations. So dozens of American newspapers are blocked in Europe, and web services like Instapaper have suspended operations in the EU for the foreseeable future. So things like the LA Times, now they get a notification in Europe that says, unfortunately, our website is currently unavailable in most European countries. Because you bastards want to protect your privacy, and obviously we're not ready to do that. We are engaged on the issue and committed at looking at options that support our full range of digital offerings to the EU market. We continue to identify technical compliance solutions that will provide all readers with our award-winning journalism. There's so much BS in that statement, it almost makes me want to physically throw up while I'm reading it. All right? It's like, just put a statement out, man. It's like, you don't have to pat yourself on the back for shutting down access in a market. It's like... Anyway, go see last week's show about the BS part. But if you're trying to reach Arizona Daily Sun from Europe, you get, we recognize you're attempting to access this website from a country belonging to the European Economic Area. Look at that. Including the EU, which enforces the GDPR. Therefore, we cannot grant you access at this time. Okay, so and obviously they'll fix that situation. They'll fit that situation. They're probably on it and finding a way to fix it. But because it does, the GDPR has some specific ways of how cookies are stored and how you have to disclose cookies, that, there's some coding involved on websites and stuff. And I mean, that's time out of somebody's day. So I definitely see how, those things could be offline at first and come back online, at some point. Right now, there are hundreds of articles, by the way, written about GDPR. But and I encourage you, by the way, if you're in communications, you need to be all over this. You need to be all over this, right? Because this is, honestly, we did this. So there's a couple of things I want to call your attention to in the law itself. The processing and storing of data. The law says that data must be processed and stored lawfully and transparently for the reasons clearly specified and agreed to by the individual. Data must be processed securely in order to prevent the unlawful access. If data is lost or stolen, you will be held liable and fined should it appear proper protections were not in place. That is really interesting, right? If your data is lost and if you collect personal data for someone and it's lost or stolen, your butt is on, the line here, and that's exactly what the law says. One of the key things to all privacy laws is the concept of consent, right? Consent is the great eraser. It's the great. Let's take the fictional relationship between a human being and a vampire. The vampire wants to come very much wants to come into the human being's house, right? But if you've seen any vampire movies, what has to happen first? The human being must provide consent for the vampire to cross the threshold of the house, right? And I'm quoting such great, books and theatrical works as, Dracula and Interview with the Vampire and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Blade. I mean, I don't know. Wherever our vampire lexicon comes from, there you go. So everybody's pretty familiar with the vampire can't cross the threshold rule, right? So that keeps the vampire out. But consent lets the vampire in. And then the vampire can come in, it can kill you, it can drain your blood, it can do all that kind of thing because you were an idiot and you said, yeah, it's cool, you can come on in. This idea of consent goes directly to relationships. What I've always told my clients, and not because the GDPR tells me to or anything else, but because I'm in marketing, and marketing is the business of long-term mutually beneficial relationships, because we're in that business, that consent is extraordinarily important. If you don't have it, you shouldn't communicate to them, not because you're going to get fined 20 million euros, but because it is the wrong thing to do. It is wrong. It is the wrong thing to do. So, just got to throw that out there, is the fact that, legislation does not replace your conscience as an organization and what you're trying to do in terms of building relationships with your audience. Everybody that's freaking out about suddenly being busted are like a bunch of people who were going 90 in a school zone, and suddenly they realized, and suddenly the cops started busting people that said the speed limit was 25. It's like, yeah, but you shouldn't be going 90 in a school zone because you might hit a kid, you idiot. It's like, it's not rocket science. A conscience, that very human thing that we have, is very, very important in marketing. I know it's not ever used by anyone else, but it's very, very important because it is how you build long-term relationships that last. We're going to be talking all about GDPR in this whole episode today, but come on back in segment 2. I'm going to talk about who's winning and who's losing this week. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on intertalkradio.com.
May the best brand win. with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. I am Scott, your host. We're talking about GDPR today and privacy and relationships and fun stuff like that. Paul B's with us. Paul, what are your thoughts on GDPR so far?
Well, I'm just kind of playing catch up with all of that. Is these fines are these is the European Union able to fine American-based companies? That it's kind of like a weird thing because you could access a website from anywhere, really. So where are those boundaries drawn? Yeah,
good question. How are they going to fine companies for this? It's unclear at this point. This first day that it's been active, the fines are huge, up to 20 million euros, of course, and so it's a big fine. Are they going to come after, if you're a United States business that primarily has an audience in the United States, you're probably not the first people that they're going to go after. However, obviously they could. So I think it's really important. I'm going to talk about that a little bit in segment 3 about, when I give some tips for kind of making your organization, GDPR ready. But let's dig into who's winning and losing. And I think we got to start with Harvey Weinstein. So Harvey Weinstein was led in handcuffs past a gauntlet of photographers today as he appeared in court to face charges that he raped one woman and forced another to perform oral sex. And Weinstein's in all kinds of trouble, as we all know. But so we're definitely going to say the investigation into him, that we've covered at length on this show, has created the whole, hashtag Me Too movement. Definitely losing. I mean, obviously Weinstein is definitely losing. The company, that he once formed is either out of business or somebody else took it over. I don't completely know the story on that, but, we got to start off with a big bunch of losing going on right there. And hopefully a lot more, in-depth looking at these folks that run some of these, Hollywood studios and just their behavior against the rest of humanity. It's not okay. So, Apple's winning literally in court because they just won a judgment for $539 million. Samsung, which everybody knows, everybody who has a glass smartphone swipes your finger across it, that kind of thing. They stole that from Apple. We know that because we lived through it, right? Apple had it first, then a bunch of people stole it. Samsung stole it, and so now they owe Apple $539 million for infringing on iPhone patents, and they're infringing on 5 patents with Android phones that it sold in 2010 and 2011, and it was a unanimous decision, and so Apple's winning. Like, Apple needs more money, by the way. They have almost $1 trillion market cap, and now Samsung's like, oh, here's another $539 million for you. But anyway, Apple's winning, Samsung's losing. There you go. Let's talk about General Electric. There's a story that came out that actually Paul B in the booth forwarded to me, and it's a story on Fortune.com, and the title is "What the Hell Happened at GE." First of all, it's always a bad sign for your PR when there are headlines like that with your company name in them, but I like the lead sentence of the story goes, "It's a bad day for a CEO when he announces he's retiring and the stock goes up." And he said that was Jeff Immelt's last day on June 12th, 2017. News of his departure was in one sense no surprise. Some investors and analysts had been urging his ouster for years, but also a shock. And then the stock, flew up. And then, the GE is definitely losing. There's a lot of things going wrong in GE, and one of the America's largest companies at one point, and certainly one of our greatest success stories, has a lot of trouble. And I encourage you, since I can't really do it justice here in the winning and losing segment, to dig into all the problems with them, but there's manufacturing problems, there's leadership problems, there's expanding into markets where you have no business being in problems, there's messaging problems, there's problems upon problems at GE. And so that's why we're gonna go ahead and put that whole big project, we're gonna put that in losing this week. Oh, let's find a one that's winning. Let's see, Netflix is winning. Did you know today Netflix has hit a record high of its stock today? It has hit an all-time high of $346.73 early yesterday. And for a short period of time, they were bigger than Disney. So let that sink in. The fact that Netflix had actually for a short period of time, and then Disney caught up right after that. But for a short period of time, Netflix was actually, above Disney in terms of its stock price. Amazing, because, Netflix, of course, started out as a company that would send you, DVDs in the mail, and you would watch them and send them back. And of course, we all, had that for a while and thought that was cool. And then Redbox came in and just disrupted the heck out of that, and also put it into video stores. And people thought, well, Netflix is done, That's going to be it for Netflix. And then Netflix, started really making its and really, creating its identity around its programming, and some of and really becoming a studio of its own right, and creating some great programming and all those kind of things, and still creating an on-demand service that people really, really want, and really have replaced a lot of other services with. But we definitely got to put Netflix in the winning category. Kudos. Cheers to Netflix. So moving on. Let's see. Here's a good one. Let's see. Where did it go? Hang on one second. I lost my feed for a second. There we go. I'm back. Yay. Fiat Chrysler. They're in the news, and not for anything good. Jeez. Fiat Chrysler is losing this week because they're recalling 5 million vehicles because in some circumstances, the driver may not be able to turn off the cruise control, which is crazy. The fact that if you couldn't turn off your cruise control, you couldn't stop the car. You couldn't, even if you put it in neutral, it would kind of just peg your RPMs. It's crazy. So the recall affects Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, and Ram models. And it has there's a whole list of, the pickups are and minivans and all these different things. But man, Fiat Chrysler is once again in crisis mode with some problems with its vehicles. And we're definitely going to put them, in the losing category this week. So Fiat Chrysler, do better. Here's a good one that we just saw today. McDonald's customers are now suing in Florida, are suing for $5 million over unwanted quarter pounder cheese. So 2 customers in Florida are suing the fast food giant for a hefty sum of $5 million because they feel they're being unfairly charged for cheese that they don't want on their burgers. So they argue that hamburgers and cheeseburgers are different prices on the McDonald's menu. But when they order a quarter pounder without the extra dairy, they're still forced to pay the same amount. According to the lawsuit, McDonald's used to sell 4 different quarter pounder options, 2 of which came without cheese and cost between 30 to 90 cents less. But at some point, the restaurant stopped separately displaying the products for purchase and lists the availability of quarter pounder with cheese and double quarter pounder with cheese. Since this change, and this is heartbreaking stuff. It's amazing. But, customers have been forced and are continue to be overcharged for these products and being forced to pay for 2 slices of cheese, which they do not want, did not order, or didn't or able to receive, or able to purchase their desired product, says the lawsuit. McDonald's is being unjustly enriched by these practices. Unjustly enriched by these practices because it receives payment for cheese it does not deliver to its customers, the lawsuit states. Oh, man. I mean, so McDonald's is losing, clearly, because they can't effectively communicate what's on their menu and to a place where they're not getting sued for $5 million. Now, I know some of you out there, you savvy marketing communications astute people, are saying, well, sure, but, why not? I mean, couldn't you just order the burger without cheese? And in some states, I guess you can, but I guess in Florida, they just, probably the effort to try to streamline the menu, not have so many menu options, right? So it doesn't freeze people up like a deer in headlights at the drive-through window or even at the counter. They probably said, well, let's just call it the quarter pounder with cheese, but we can have it come without cheese, but we're just going to charge the one price. And now they're getting sued for $5 million for the, what was it? What was oh my God. Plaintiffs have suffered injury as a result of their purchases because they were overcharged. Now, what kind of injury have you suffered because you got a hamburger with or without cheese and didn't order it? I mean, even if you're lactose intolerant, that's not even that big a deal. But we're going to put McDonald's in firmly in losing because they have to deal with such insanity and because their brand's being mentioned in this way, which is not fun. Not fun for them. I'm not a big fan of personal digital assistants like the Amazon, Alexa, the Echo and those kind of things. And really, here's why. A Portland couple sitting alone in their home chatting about hardwood floors this week were very surprised when a friend in Seattle, Washington, called to tell them that he just heard the whole thing because the couple's Amazon Echo device recorded the entire conversation and then sent the conversation to him by mistake. Afterwards, Amazon was alerted. The online retailer reached out and said, "We're so sorry." So Danielle, the woman in the story here, said she felt invaded since she had unplugged and has since unplugged all of her Amazon smart home devices and hopes to receive a refund from the company, which she says Amazon has been reluctant to grant. So basically what happened was, here's what Amazon said happened. Echo, the evil Skynet-like AI that is awake in your house all the time and always listening to you and always feeding data in some creepy-ass fashion back to Amazon. Echo woke up due to a word in the background conversation which sounded like Alexa. Then the subsequent conversation was heard as send message request, at which point Alexa said out loud, "To whom?" At which point the background conversation was interpreted as a name in the customer's contact list. Alexa then asked out loud, "Contact name, right?" And Alexa then interpreted the background conversation as right. This unlikely string of events is, can you see this the first time that when Boston Dynamics starts selling that robot next year and the first time it kills somebody, they're going to say, Spot woke up due to a word in the conversation that sounded like Spot, wake up. Then he grabbed the child's head and ripped it off of its body because it sounded like kill the child. And then they said, just stop it. Just stop it. You don't have control over these things. And the more that we find, the reason that we're talking about GDPR and stuff like this, right, is because people, well-meaning, church-going people out there continue to make stupid mistakes with technology. Putting a device on your, coffee table that could potentially record all your conversations and send it to anybody in your contact list is one of those choices. So it's just, and there's always going to be a technical explanation of why it happened, but it shouldn't happen. It should not happen, right? We as a species may not be smart enough to even know what stuff we're letting loose on the world out there. Things like drones and robotic dogs and elder care robots that are going to be coming online, all these kind of things. We have no idea what these things are going to do. And the companies sure as hell aren't going to tell you if they know themselves. So I think, all this, I think that there should be a Department of Common Sense, somewhere in some, government age, maybe not government, that might even not make sense, that can ask these kind of questions and get in front of these kind of things. Because this is, the exact reason why I don't have any of those personal digital assistants in my world. Just so you know. So we're going to put Amazon and Echo and Alexa and all that stuff firmly in the losing category this week. Nielsen, you know them, they collect TV ratings. They're going to start to include YouTube TV viewing figures in their local ratings. So as more users cut cords and go with live TV streaming services like Hulu and Sling and things like that, it's harder for broadcasters to gauge ratings, right? Especially on the local level. So Nielsen is going to start measuring local TV audiences for YouTube TV to give advertisers a full account of all viewing activity, irrespective of the distribution channel. Which is kind of interesting. And Nielsen already added Hulu and YouTube TV's live TV service to its C3 and C7 ratings, those kind of things. But anyway, it's kind of interesting. I think you got to put Google and YouTube in the winning category for this because obviously they're going to be able to charge more for, different types of advertising, things like that when they're able to, quantify how many people are watching. Postmates is the last one I want to cover here. So they have an ad that came out that says Postmates is kind of a it's a food delivery market company in New York City. But they released an ad that says, here's the copy. When you want a whole cake to yourself because you're turning 30, which is basically 50, which is basically dead. Dessert, we get it. And it's and basically you can order like whole cakes and pints of ice cream. And so they're kind of being, cheeky with it and that kind of thing. And basically saying, you want a whole cake to yourself because you're turning 30, which is basically 50, which is basically dead. Right. It's appealing to someone who's turning 30 and playing on that. But then they had to apologize because everybody that was 50 or older got really ticked off when they saw it and they got upset and they said, we're not going to boycott what always happens. There's a boycott. I mean, can we go a week without a boycott? To be honest, there's a boycott. And it's like, you know what? You're still, even if you're boycotting, you're a liar. You're still getting you're still getting whole cakes and pints of ice cream from these people anyway. I know it. You know it. Everybody knows it. But we're going to put Postmates in the losing column because of its tasteless advertising about age and death over 50. And you are listening to May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. Come on back. We're going to talk about GDPR and your operation for the new wave. Talk to you in a few.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Happy Friday, everybody. You are super, super smart because you are back with May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. I am still Scott, still your host. It's segment 3. Paul B. We just did winning and losing. A lot of stuff this week. Paul, what do you like this week?
I think the McDonald's thing is kind of silly. It's a nuisance, I'm sure, but at the end of the day, like if I'm a business, I set my prices to what I sell, what they are. You can buy it, you can not buy it. You can't sue me.
Exactly.
I mean, you could sue me, but I don't think you should win.
I tell you, it's just sad, isn't it, that people are going to. I like how if you get a chance to read the news coverage of that lawsuit, the attorney's statements are magically delicious. They're awesome. they're special. McDonald's has been unjustly profiting from this huge cheese operation, and McDonald's is like, that is so not us at all. We don't care at all. It was pretty funny. Well, that's what's going on in winning and losing, people. That's what I'm talking about. So, this show we've been talking about GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations, dropping out of the clear blue sky on everybody who collects data and could potentially affect citizens of the EU and UK. I'm going to give you some tips in this segment about how to GDPR ready your operation. But first, I do want to talk about a couple of things about compliance, right? So, a couple of things. This does affect American companies. I want to make sure people know that, especially companies that ship any kind of products, around the world and could potentially have, dealings with and commerce dealings in particular with folks in the EU and the UK kind of side of things. So make sure you understand that. Make sure you understand that May 25th means May 25th. It went into effect today. It means that that's why you're getting all of this these privacy policy changes and all these kind of things. There's no extensions in terms of compliance. What you need to do is you need to appoint a data protection officer who's going to be the point person responsible for walking the PR oversight team through the ways in which your company is going to be securing the data. That piece is really important. You need to bring in communications on that exactly. It explains on exactly kind of what you need to do, but the privacy policies need to be looked at. That's why we're getting so many of them in the email these days. Again, the last kind of point that I want to make before I give you some tips is the fact that GDPR was very preventable. If marketing would have behaved more responsibly with its use of data, it's a flagrant misuse of data, and it's a flagrant, just flagrant overstepping of what marketing should be doing in a constant, basis. Then you wouldn't have seen this. You wouldn't have seen this, and you wouldn't see what's coming next either. So anyway, but it is here, and that's where we're at. And I look at it as an opportunity. Some people look at it as a threat. I look at it as an opportunity for marketing to finally, maybe grow that conscience and get back on the good foot here and try to, do things the right way. Using the law, I don't care. Use it as an example or a scapegoat or whatever. My first tip is relax. It is not the end of the world. Okay. It is not the end of the world. It is just a turn in the road, right? It's not the end of the road. It's just a turn in the road. And, again, I think it's an opportunity for all organizations to be better, to do these things the right way, probably the way that they should have been done in the first place, but, didn't happen. What are you going to do? So, I would just say it's really, really important to, not freak out about this, to not, and to take a measured approach to it, and to read up on it and to understand it. If you're just hearing about it on my show for the first time, that's not good. You're a little behind given the fact that it's in effect today. So you should catch up. Make sure you're reading a lot of articles on it and understanding from a communications standpoint, from a data security standpoint, what we're talking about. But again, not the end of the world. Tip number two, study up. Know this law. You should know this law, and you should stay plugged into, what's going on with the rest, with the next laws that are coming out. Like I said, it's very, very likely that our own Federal Trade Commission this year, probably before 2008 is up, I would predict that they would say, okay, this is our United States, data privacy, Bill of Rights, customer protection, what have you, kind of thing. Our version of the GDPR from our government is coming soon. Some people in our government would say that we already have it because we have the canned spam laws, which are pretty strict, but the enforceability and the fines aren't as high. So we certainly don't have anything like a $24.5 million fine for misuse of data and communication. So I mean, those are some serious fines, folks. So know the law. Very, very, very important. Tip number 3. Make sure you talk to an attorney regarding your company's compliance with the law. I am not an attorney. There's no communication person that is. We should be on the team because we are the people. We should be on the GDPR team always because we're the people that say, well, I mean, aside from the minimal level of compliance that we need to do to win in the small courtroom, how do we maintain our long-term mutually beneficial relationships with our customers? And that's the big courtroom. And how do we make sure that we're, can we take our concerns for people's privacy even further than the law? Can we over-comply with these laws? Really looking at these things and saying, do we need to collect all these data from our customers or not? If they don't like it, if we don't use it, if it's not integral to what we're doing in terms of the sales process, then it's like, what is this even? And some of the articles, talk about that. They talk about there's one thing on here, for example, it's called Article 17 of the law is called the right to be forgotten. That's not just like an artist in the United States that has one hit song and then it's like, they mean like companies must delete all data upon on the citizens upon request. So that's not just something that marketing can do by itself, by the way, right? It's going to take a village. You need to have IT and marketing really working closely on this because if a consumer says, I want you, I request under GDPR, if an EU, UK citizen says, I want my data deleted, then companies must delete it, right? And that's going to require somebody who knows how to delete the data in the database, right? Very, very important. One other thing, data breaches must be reported within 72 hours now. Remember we had that situation that we talked about on the show that I think it was Uber that got sued by the state of Pennsylvania because it took them a year to disclose a data breach, which put a bunch of consumers' data out in the wind, right? But now in the EU and according to GDPR, if you don't report a data or security breach within 72 hours, and by report, what does that mean? We're communicating to our audience, right? It's not like we have an internal report and it's in a TPS report that we handed to Peter, so we can put the right cover sheet on the memo. It's like, no, this is when they say report, they mean report via the media within 72 hours and report directly to the consumer too, just so you know. So there's a lot of stuff like that that you need to be doing, right? So just a quick, there's a lot of good checklists out there about what you should be doing from a communications standpoint. But a couple of good points that you don't want to miss, here under this tip are the fact that, just like with CAN spam and the Canadian privacy law, you need to collect consent for the use of any kind of personal data. Really, really important. You also, you need to have the personal data available so they can see what you've collected and they can access, change, or update. That's just good practice anyway, by the way. You need to be clear on all your email communications about, how you got the email address. It's like, who are you? Why are you emailing them? Most people are pretty good at this now. If you use a service like MailChimp, Constant Contact, they've pretty much forced us to be on top of this, which is good. Always provide a double opt-in. Now, a double opt-in is where you opt in the first time and then, they send you that annoying email and then you have to verify your email address and you have to do that kind of double opt-in piece. That is what we are defining as consent here in the modern age, is that we want a double opt-in. A single opt-in is not good enough. And in your opt-in process, you need to be clear about the expectations and what they can expect from providing the email. Like, am I going to send you a weekly, daily email or occasional, special report? What are we going to do with this data? That's really, really important. By the way, not just for GDPR, great for GDPR, but you want to do that for your audience anyway, because we're in the relationship business and you don't want to set expectations that, we're going to email you only when we have something useful to say. And then you're a musician's friend and you send me a sales email every single day. It's like, dear musician's friend, I do not buy music gear every single day. You're wasting your time. You're wasting my time. And I hate you just a little bit more every single time you do it. So, don't sacrifice your relationship with your customer. So to give them a 15% off coupon, when they get it, they're just like, oh, got another email from a musician's friend. Plus, if somebody pings you every day, you're not special. You're not saying anything special. And we just get used to you. You're just the stock report. You're just, every day the numbers are going to be there and that kind of thing. And you don't ever want your brand to be that. You don't ever want your brand to be predictable or this, thing that you want to be special. You want the relationship with your customers to be special. You want your communications with them to be special, and you don't want to give that up. And that has nothing to do with GDPR. That has to do with just common sense marketing. Common sense marketing. Another thing I want to say is don't buy lists. Don't use lists from others. While these people have given consent, maybe for one organization for consent, this is really important for GDPR. I'm not a list guy. I don't like lists. I like to attract people to an audience and have them consent and opt in because I want a relationship with them. I don't just want an email address. I want a relationship, right? So I don't buy lists. I don't like lists. I don't like people who use lists. I think that is exactly how we got into this situation. Our data is sold without our knowledge so much that it should annoy us a lot more than it does, but we just kind of ho-hum, whatever, we just kind of give it up. But again, there's a wave coming for all these people that have done this bottom-feeding crap that passes as marketing for so long. The stuff that you guys are doing is not marketing. Marketing is defined as trying to create a relationship between a company and its audience, right? If you bought a list from somebody, then that relationship is exactly as long as my email address. You don't have nothing. You don't have any type of relationship with me, So that's not the same thing. And you shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. Allow me to get preachy for a moment, but you shouldn't have been doing that stuff in the first place. But now is a great time to stop doing it because there are fines associated with doing it now. Very, very, very important. So you cannot collect any information from anyone under 16 without parental consent. So if your target is people under 16, you need to change your system of data collection. And honestly, look at your communication strategy too. People under the age of 16, be careful. Our government watches them as a different class of citizens, right? They're kids. Okay. We have to do a whole show on why kids are a different audience and why they are protected at the level that they are. But honestly, just your general let's not be creepy factor should kick in around this time. And you should go, we don't probably need to be doing that, And so how can we get away with not doing that? That kind of thing. So anyway, lots of, I got off on a little bit of a tangent there, but those are the kind of things you want to, tip number 3, as I mentioned, you want to talk to an attorney. When you're making definitive decisions about the law and interpreting the law, you want a lawyer doing that for you. I am happy to make referrals to any specialists in privacy. If you need those, by the way, I have a big network. I know a lot of attorneys that do that kind of stuff and would be happy to work with you. If you don't have in-house counsel, and you definitely should have an attorney looking at this stuff, your privacy policies, because the other side of it, when the FTC drops this later this year, you're definitely going to have to, be looking at your privacy policy at that point. Number 4, if you are in the relationship business, and you are, if you're listening to this show and you're a marketer, you always respect the privacy and don't ever use your customers' data for anything else other than helping them have an incredibly delightful experience with you and your brand. All of these problems come from people who did things that they shouldn't have been doing, right? Very, very important. Number 5, make sure that all of your providers, if you have marketing automation, if you have that, if you have, MailChimp email, make sure everybody's GDPR compliant, because if they're doing it on your behalf, GDPR is not coming after them. They're coming after you. They're gonna, the Parliament is gonna, Enforcement Bureau or whatever is gonna be coming straight after you. Very important. So what did we learn today in this whole big show? We know there is a big old wave coming that is going to shake up marketing for some time to come. Consumers are fed up with privacy invasions, and their governments are taking action. It didn't really have to go this way. Marketing departments could have stopped this, but we were so enamored about what we could do with data. Oh, we have this, and we know that we have these people, and they go to the bathroom 5 times a day, blah, 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 that we never stopped to ask whether we should, right? There's a big difference between that. Stay tuned, because GDPR is only the beginning of this very long and very important story to the communications profession. That's it for me, folks. Until next week, this has been Scott Robertson, the host of May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Media. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and rock on. See ya.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it, because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?